Toby, we're back.
Yes.
Yeah, what are we doing today?
So before with part one, we did the assessment. We did a brain map on you. We were measuring all those different electrical frequencies, looking at the different distribution of delta, theta, alpha, beta, and gamma. Today is the fun part where we're actually going to train your brain to decrease or increase various amounts of those different frequencies that's actually best suited based on your brain maps.
And from what we discovered, there's some frequencies that I definitely need some fixing, huh?
Yes, definitely. You could use a little bit of down regulation of some of the slower delta, theta. When you down regulate the slower frequencies, you actually increase blood flow and brain oxygenation. So that'll be a really good benefit. And then also in training, kind of a low beta rhythm for focus. It's a kind of focused yet still calm and relaxed state, because we saw a lot of like higher beta frequencies, which is linked to like a very active mind, sometimes overactive, kind of in a million different places,
Right.
mind running a million miles an hour. So
Right. Sweet.
help calm that down a little bit.
Sweet. I'm pumped. Cool. Alrighty. So I'm gonna pull up this camera to just show you guys what it looks like on Toby's end and the data that we're analyzing. So that's my brain.
This is your brain. So this top row, I'll just have people kind of tune into the top row for now. So this is D for delta, T for theta, A for alpha, B for beta, G for gamma. Actually, something that might be really good, I can pull up PowerPoint that'll break down. This would be a good thing, I think, to show the camera. Okay, so basically this top row is showing the major frequencies that we're evaluating, and the white is showing like normal, healthy activity. So for instance, in alpha, we're seeing all white. So just that's Andres' brain is producing normal, healthy amounts of alpha.
Some people would describe me as alpha. It makes just kidding.
Perfect correlation. Same thing.
Where's the sigma delta? Sigma wave.
That's
Where's
like
that?
a special one, like right here, like you hover over it.
Right. Cool.
So basically what we're seeing, the warmer colors are indicating overactivity, and we're actually not seeing any of the lighter colors, which would indicate underactivity, but we are just seeing the warmer colors.
So it would be a cooler color. So in there in the corner,
Yeah.
that would be a deficiency or under.
Correct.
You'd be below the activity threshold.
Correct. So what we're seeing here, so with delta and theta, so these warmer colors are indicating overactivity in these slower frequencies. When you produce too much of delta and theta, that's kind of those areas of the brain being a bit offline, you're kind of getting decreased blood flow and brain oxygenation. So
There's the brain that are offline.
Yeah, offline a little bit. And we're seeing that particularly like the frontal lobes, which just talking with you, something like with ADHD, oftentimes the frontal lobes are a bit disengaged. So it's a pattern that makes a lot of sense, kind of based on what you're reporting. And that particularly, if you guys look at like all of the F, this row that says F, we're seeing F7, F3, FZ, F4, F8. We're all seeing elevations in all of those in the delta,
right?
Theta. Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes. So that's delta and theta, and then beta is one that's a brainwave that's really important for your focus, concentration, your ability to just stay on task, and a lot of like executive functioning, which we're seeing a lot of excess like beta activity. So sometimes that's related to kind of like over arousal. Sometimes people will experience like symptoms of anxiety, or just having a very active mind, always kind of thinking. So these lower couple rows are basically the subcomponents. So basically each of these different delta, theta, alpha, beta, and gamma, they're broken down into these subcomponents. And that's, for our purposes, like we're going to just talk about one of those, which is beta 3. So we're seeing kind of all this red activity.
Yeah, that's
right.
That really
Right
stands
there.
to us.
Yeah. So that's basically showing the specific portion of the beta that's most active. So the 16 to 20 hertz, that rhythm, your brain is just producing a lot of that activity. So that's really good to know, because then with the training, we can work on kind of down regulating some of that excess activity.
Okay.
Now, if we evaluate what are called Z-scores, so this is basically showing which areas of the brain and which frequencies were most statistically abnormal. So we look at the first clinical Z-score is at FP2, which is the left prefrontal cortex at 18 hertz. And that makes a lot of sense because 18 hertz is in that
range, the beta range. This was it 15 to 20?
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's right there.
Yes. So that could be involved in anxiety, ADHD, obsessions. There's an area of the brain called the orbital gyrus that lies there that's very involved in executive control, motivation, organization, judgment, inhibition, sustained focus, attachment, along with social skills.
So basically, based on the brain activity that you see and based on this chart, these are likely the symptoms that I'm dealing with and what we can address through training.
Yeah, like possible symptoms. So I'm not a mind reader in the sense of like, I can't know exactly what's.
I think you're as close to a mind reader as it gets.
So without like knowing people's actual symptoms, I can't say, okay, you're, experiencing this, but not that. So these are all the functions. These are all the different functions that area of the brain in this specific frequency is involved in. So it's, as it's saying here, these are possible symptoms. So,
well, I'll tell you what, there are certainly times where I can be anxious. I think everyone, deals with anxiety. I certainly can, especially if I don't get good sleep. ADHD is a very real part of my life. I would say it's more like ADD. I don't really become so hyperactive. As far as obsessions, I mean, I am an extremist with my hobbies, so if I do get into something and it's something that I'm motivated to do, something that I really enjoy, I'll go full throttle. Like I dive headfirst into the things that I enjoy, and I can be very obsessive about them. As far as executive control, motivation, I mean, I find that I'm very motivated when it comes to things that genuinely interest me. When it comes to things that I am not interested in, I'm like, I will do anything I can to avoid them. So it's like a gift and a curse in that what I enjoy, I'm really good at, I learn very quickly, I can master. What I don't like, even if it's something simple, something that's easy to do. For example, when I was in at the university, I had very difficult science courses like organic chemistry or physics, calculus 2, which are, objectively very difficult courses. And I excelled in them because I really enjoyed the material. Whereas, my stats class, my first stats class, dude, believe it or not, I literally failed the class. It was my easiest class, but because it was so easy, I don't know, it seemed useless to me, honestly. I never did any of the work. I didn't study for the exams. I had to redo the class. I learned to pay attention. I aced the class the second time I took it. But I failed the class because I wasn't motivated. I wasn't inspired. I wasn't motivated at all to do well. So yeah, it just goes to show that it can be a gift and a curse, so.
definitely so.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah, as far as social skills, I mean, I like to imagine that I'm pretty social and thrive in social environments, but even then, I would say I'm definitely more introverted than extroverted. I think I'm socially extroverted when it has to do with a topic that I really resonate with. If someone starts talking sport, I think we spoke about this. If someone's talking like sports around me, I just become completely disengaged. In the conversation, I just completely tune out. So if it's something about fasting and autophagy and, I don't know, metabolism, I go to town, but otherwise I'm very disengaged. And if you look at my personality type, so my Myers-Briggs, I'm an INTJ, so I'm more of an introverted type. But they call it the architect, like a mastermind. It's like, you are playing chess, but it's in your mind, with anything and everything that you do. And I feel like that's very much how I live my life. So it's cool to see it here in this, representation with this kind of data.
Mm-hmm.
So
definitely so.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, like I said, all these things are a gift and a curse, but there's certainly areas where I would like to improve. There are things that I have to deal with every day that I'm not motivated to do, but I have to do it myself. And we had a conversation just, an hour ago as we were setting up about, as entrepreneurs, how we outsource work and how we, how we're trying to focus on doing the things that only we can do and how to build a team around helping us with the rest. I'm not at 100% of, where I want to be with my business or as a professional. And there's still tasks that I have to do that I have trouble doing and that I don't yet have the resources to hire someone else for. So I have to be an effective decision maker and executor, in those areas. So I look forward to, the training and how it may help.
Right, right. And I mean, everything that you're talking about there is all like frontal lobe stuff. Like prefrontal cortex and the frontal lobes are very involved in all that, like executive functioning, picking out what you're going to choose to pay attention to versus what you're not. So it's like sort of like what you're describing is sort of the way I conceptualize it is like you need that something that like stimulates that usually dopamine release, like in the prefrontal cortex, that really like gets us to feel like motivated. Dopamine is like the chemical of reward. It causes us to continue like doing more of whatever it is that gets that.
The molecule of more, what they call
Molecule of more. Yep. So you may have like with ADHD, like it might take kind of a greater stimulus to elicit that like dopamine response.
Yeah, there's a greater threshold that you have to cross in order for, was it an action potential to motivate me to do whatever I need to do?
Right. So it's like that might be why it's like you don't find yourself motivated with like tasks that just like don't engage that frontal cortex enough.
Yeah. So something else that we're dealing with here is, physiologically, what does it mean to have ADD? Well, I have lower levels of dopamine than the average person. So it goes hand in hand with everything that we just discussed. I need more motivation to do things that I otherwise wouldn't want to do, that are not very, just like trivial, repetitive tasks. I can't be asked to do it. You know what I mean? So, but I'll tell you what, you recommended a supplement that I had a chance to look into, L-tyrosine and alpha GPC. And these are two supplements that Andrew Huberman recommends in his focus and productivity stack for folks with ADD. And please jump in and correct me if I'm wrong here, but the tyrosine helps to create dopamine.
Exactly.
It's a precursor to the dopamine molecule. Alpha GPC is a precursor to acetylcholine, which in turn creates choline, which is really good for all kinds of neurotransmitter production. So I've been taking this stuff, and I was describing to Toby how I feel an effect that's similar to what I felt with Adderall, without the social anxiety, without the jitters, without the decrease in cravings. I mean, it's like the good stuff about Adderall, and it's a little more subtle, and it's puts me in a very nice, steady flow. So
Right.
It's been pretty sweet.
That's awesome. You found this helpful. And then that's usually what you want to do, especially when it comes to the dopamine system, is like gently nudging it, usually like, with natural kind of substances rather than like pharmaceutical, like Adderall, that's going to drastically like, increase your dopamine levels while you're on it.
Yeah.
But then your dopamine levels tank when it wears off, and then people get irritable, really have trouble focusing. It almost puts you at like a lower place than you were to begin with.
I mean, and that's because when you take something like Adderall, there's more dopamine in the synapse, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what your brain does as a result, and please, again, jump in, you're the expert here, you'll end up creating more binding sites for dopamine along the receptors, right? The
synaptic cleft.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so what happens is the second that you stop taking the medication, or if you're off of it, all of a sudden you have more binding sites for your dopamine, meaning there's less of it in the synapse, meaning less of it is there to motivate you. So you become dependent on it. And so when I first started taking the medication years back, I mean, I was 8 years old, I started like at 5-10 milligrams. And after a few years, I was at the maximum prescribed dosage. I was at 60 milligrams of Adderall and 70 milligrams. And dude, that's, I mean, if anyone that's tuning in right now is taking Adderall, I promise you, 99.9% of those people haven't taken even more than 20 milligrams. Dude, it is just absolutely insane the way I would feel. It helped, but the second that I stopped taking it, I had terrible withdrawal symptoms. It was the hardest thing that I've ever had to do in my life, is get off of Adderall, but I'm glad that I did it, and I'm glad that I was able to enable lifestyle habits and develop a career out of the things that genuinely motivated me. And it's how I get to do this, every single day. This is literally because I get to do this. It's the reason that I am successful, because there's nothing else that I could have done that would have motivated me in this fashion. I would have had to take Adderall my whole life.
Right.
I didn't get the chance to pick exactly what I wanted to do every single day.
Right.
And to build a lifestyle around that. So this is literally this what you guys are watching right now. This is my medicine today.
I love that.
And you're here to help me take it a step further. So
yeah,
here we are.
And one of the great things I think about, like, what Adderall does provide, like what it provided you and what I think it provides a lot of people is like a window into the opportunity of like what your brain can
Absolutely.
do.
That's a great point.
Even though there are all the downsides, it's like if we can get your brain to like function with all those like positive, effects of Adderall with either tools like we're going to talk about neurofeedback, neurostimulation, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or you mentioned like some supplements, tyrosine, alpha GPC that can be really helpful.
Yeah.
That's you can get those same brain benefits without needing to be on Adderall.
Yeah, that's a great point. And actually, and I'll bring this up briefly. I know this is a taboo subject for a lot of people, but we were discussing, psychedelic medicine. And I think that if there's anything that psychedelic medicine has taught me, like, for example, microdosing with psilocybin, magic mushrooms, for those who don't know, it has shown me in a way what's possible therapeutically. And so what I've done as a result is I've been more driven, more inspired to do things like yoga and meditation and take care of myself in a way that I can elicit similar brainwave states and meditative states to be more present, more aware of myself and my surroundings and so much more. So it's great to introduce some of these things every once in a while. Yes, they can certainly help us. I am, by the way, glad that I took that medication. I wouldn't have gone through school if I didn't have it. And I'm glad my parents administered the medication. They're medical doctors. They knew what they were doing, but it helped me tremendously. But now I get to see, okay, that's what's possible as far as focus productivity. What can I do to create that naturally? And here we are. I mean, you're as much of a believer in that as I am. And there certainly is things that you can do naturally. And I want to emphasize tuning in. This is the point of this show, is there's a host of things that you can do naturally to become the best version of yourself. You don't have to rely on pharmaceutical grade drugs to become the best version of yourself. You can build a lifestyle that allows you to be the best version of yourself. And it's about knowing your physiology, knowing the science, so you can take the best steps towards that lifestyle. That's what this is all about. Literally, this is why I built Neurophysio. I wish that I had this kind of science and education in my hands when I was younger. I can't even begin to imagine how much further I would have gotten if I had this information and these tools at hand, years back. So if I could go back in time, I would tell my younger self, hey, look, this is L-tyrosine. This is your brainwave. This is meditation. This is exercise. This is nutrition. This is how you can approach it. This is how you can, maintain simple habits that will eventually lead to an improved version of yourself. And no, Andres, you don't need to take medication for the rest of your life. So those of you tuning in, there's a will, there's a way. Science can help you do that.
Yes. Actually, like the definition of a nootropic, is basically like, the way I've heard it defined is like a substance that increases cognitive performance, which is what Adderall does, right? Adderall's partly a nootropic. Some people would argue that it is, but I don't think the majority of people would argue that it's not, because there's another component. So a nootropic needs to increase cognitive performance along with be like neuroprotective,
right?
In terms of actually being beneficial for your brain health.
Right.
Adderall, that is not.
Yeah.
There's a whole, you could argue meditation, exercise, those are all like nootropics. They're not compounds, but they're all things that are going to increase our mental performance, but also sustain like our long-term brain health.
You know who defined it very nicely, and it's someone that we both had on the podcast. It's Boomer Anderson. He defines a nootropic as any agent, influence, or lifestyle that improves the health of the brain or the fitness of the brain.
Yeah.
And so like meditation is a nootropic. Exercise, getting sunlight, those are all nootropics. Listening to a good podcast is a nootropic. But yeah, absolutely. If it's something that is just improving the performance, but it's taking away from so much more, then Adderall, in my book at least, is not a nootropic. It's a pharmaceutical grade drug.
Yes.
So stay away from that stuff from now on. Yeah. Awesome, bro. All right. So what do we have? What's next?
Yeah. So basically with, everything that we talked about, actually, I'll show one more screen here. So this is a page of connectivity. So basically measuring, so all these different areas of the brain, they're all communicating with other areas. And what this page is looking at is whether there's too much connectivity, there's too many signals getting sent back and forth between different areas. So that's the hyperconnectivity on the left.
So this isn't my brain. This is just an example.
Yeah, this is your brain.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
yep. Okay, cool.
Yep. So this is your brain here. So we're seeing some moderate hyperconnectivity, particularly in area T6, which is the right posterior temporal lobe, an area very involved in navigation, empathy, facial recognition.
That's hyperactive or hypoactive?
So the connections that it's sending to other areas are hyperactive. So it's basically over communicating with all these other areas of the brain.
It's over communicating what exactly?
Like it's signaling. So that area of the brain, there's like healthy amounts of signals that it should be like sending messages to like other areas of the brain. But if there's over communication, that can result in issues in terms of like basically the brain's not making efficient use of its resources.
Right, right. But in this case, I don't know if I got it right, but in this case, what exactly is like what are the messages that my brain is over communicating?
Well, so that area of the brain, the right posterior temporal lobe, I mean, we talked about what it's involved in and then its projections to all those other areas. I mean, every area of the brain is responsible for different functions, and they all work together to produce a lot of different cognitive functions. So you can see all of these lines here. It's like hard to say exactly like, okay, what that is going to be involved in, because we're seeing lines all the way to the left temporal lobe, all the way on the
Right. It's just there's just so many nodes to determine exactly what the messages are.
exactly.
But
We just know which node is sort of dysregulated out of
okay.
all.
But is there anything that you can predict based on what you see here?
I mean, oftentimes, like, potentially like temporal lobe issues, if people, were to have any issues with like navigation, facial recognition, drawing, empathy.
Wait, who are you again?
I think what's actually probably more relevant for our purposes is talking about like the underconnectivity, what we're seeing on the right, because so an area where we're seeing kind of like really like all of the projections to these other areas is underactive, right? We're seeing it all kind of culminating at that one spot, and that's the left frontal lobe. So obviously we talked about before the frontal lobe is being so involved in attention and kind of disengaged in ADHD. So the frontal lobe, or the left frontal lobe, just to specify, it's involved in attention, sequence processing, problem solving, approach behaviors, expressive language, motor planning, object processing, along with cravings and addictions.
Wow.
So we're seeing kind of some underconnectivity of that area, and then also the left sensory motor cortex, which is kind of right here on the map. And that's an area involved in pain perception, also cravings and addictions, mood regulation. Pain perception.
So I have a low activity in that area?
You have low connectivity. So,
You know what's crazy? My whole life, I feel like I've had the highest tolerance for physical pain. Could that be related?
yeah, I mean, that's the brain not getting the signals of pain quite as much.
Dude, so now I have to start to believe the rest of that, of all this, huh?
Yeah, I mean, those are all possible.
No, I know. I'm just messing around. Yeah, cool.
But yeah. So basically, what's important for everyone to understand, for you to understand, is just that this is kind of like this was your brain, a snapshot of its performance, its functionality. No one is stuck with the brain that they're at currently because of neuroplasticity. The brain's this remarkable capacity that up until like a few decades ago, researchers didn't even know existed. They thought that as you kind of progress through adolescence into adulthood, that the brain just stopped developing, your neurons just started dying off, with excess drinking or aging. They just thought, things could have just, connections started to kind of fall away.
Right.
We know that does happen, but also at the same time, neurogenesis and neuroplasticity, the connection of new areas, new brain cells, and then new connections amongst those cells is occurring throughout the entire adult lifespan.
Wow.
So really with the technologies that we're going to be kind of showcasing and working with you today, those technologies are all harnessing neuroplasticity. So all changing the electrical activity, which in turn changes the functionality of the brain.
Yeah, and I've been fascinated by the topic of neuroplasticity for years. I mean, ever since I discovered it, for the same reason. I thought honestly for a long time. As soon as I started taking, my neuropsychophysiology, my neuroscience and psychology classes, I was like, man, is my brain fucked after all these years of medication? And the first time I came across the concept of neuroplasticity, I started to dig into it, and now I know that's something as simple as meditation, even exercise,
Yeah.
good sleep. I mean, I missed out on sleep my whole life because I was on amphetamines. Um, and even like something like lion's mane and psilocybin. I mean, there's so many things that you can add in beyond this training that's specifically for these, this influence and effect. There's so many things that you can add in to promote neurogenesis, neuroplasticity.
Yeah. And also I would add like things to take away, things
That's right.
like sugar.
Oh my God, that
decreases your rate of neurogenesis.
Wow.
I mean, it's promoting anything that you can think of promoting inflammation in the body and therefore brain is going to decrease your rates of neurogenesis.
Wow.
So yeah, it's sometimes about addition, but I think addition by subtraction.
Oh my God, dude. And you know what else is, I had a chance to experiment with so Bioptimize is actually the sponsors of this show, and this is not an ad. This is I'm not that bright, trust me. But on a serious note, they actually had a supplement called Cognibiotics. So it's like a probiotic blend designed to help you build the bacteria in your gut that via the gut-brain axis helps with neurotransmitter production and neuroplasticity, stuff like that. I mean, that's what they proposed. Theoretically, that's how it works. And I remember I started taking this stuff for like a month, and I felt way smarter, and I felt like I was just simply learning things more quickly. I really genuinely feel like it had an effect on neuroplasticity and neurogenesis. And I was pairing this with there's a brand called Mogu mushrooms. I met them at a farmer's market here in Florida. They have incredible lion's mane and they have like a neuro blend for with like lion's mane and chaga reishi cordyceps. And I feel like that stuff in my morning coffee was also having a really important effect. So anyway, just to prove that, I guess anecdotally, that there are certainly even, compounds you can add to your morning routine that support this kind of influence and effect. So let's get the training.
Yeah, let's do it. So what I like to start people with is this light therapy helmet. So this is the technical name for this.
There's a tinfoil hat somewhere that we're missing.
Oh, there's another there. I was messing with you. But yeah, so this helmet basically has 256 LEDs that deliver near-infrared light. Near-infrared light's actually invisible to the naked eye, so it's like more so heat energy. You can think of it as.
Look at that.
I'll turn it on so you can actually see the light. So what you're seeing there is the red lights. Those are just the test lights because, as I just said, the near-infrared light is actually not visible to the naked eye.
So it's just to make sure that you have it on.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So the red lights. So what's cool about this, and I'll also kind of show this interface here. So basically what we're looking at, so I can adjust basically 3 different things. So I can adjust the frequency so we can pulse the light at whatever frequency that I'd like, anywhere from 1 up to like 200 hertz. So that correlates with all those different brainwave frequencies that we talked about from the brain map. So for instance, if we wanted to entrain like a 1 hertz, like a very slow delta rhythm that'd usually be produced in very like deep restorative sleep, you put it at 1 hertz. And then I start this up and you see the test light kind of gently oscillating, very, very
right. It matches the frequency.
Matches the frequency. So the brain picks that up and starts oscillating at that same rhythm. So I could set the frequency at any, if we were wanting to help someone really relax or get to sleep, we can do a much slower wave frequency. If we want to help someone really focus, feel energized, this can basically be anything from, a sleep aid to your morning cup of coffee. It's really that, diverse in terms of whatever frequency you picked. You're gonna feel different effects.
I actually have 2 devices that I brought that do something similar, but this is the Pro Neuro Light, and this will shine red infrared light in my nose, and I can set it to a specific, frequency. And I use this for sleep. I use it before podcasts. See, we're gonna be freaked out about not this, but I don't know. Maybe we can pair them up.
Yeah,
I don't want to.
No, you absolutely can. I actually used to have a device, a little
V light.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I would be wearing it like while driving or like on airplanes. I would get the crazy.
I do the same thing. I do that, and on the airplane, I do that with my raw optics, blue blockers.
Yeah.
And recently, I got the lambs. They make like the EMF proof like underwear and shirts. So recently, I mean, no one's looking at my underwear on the plane, but I got the shirts. And yeah, so next time, I mean, I'm getting on the plane tomorrow. I'm gonna be like completely suited up with all the crazy shit.
Love it.
But so what frequency should I set this to? Because I've got,
Yeah. So
I can set it to
So actually, I was going to ask you that in terms of like, how would you like to feel in terms of, do you want effects in terms of like more focus, more relaxation? I can
I
tell
feel
you.
great right now. I don't
Yeah.
have to change a thing, but I mean, I guess,
You put you in like
yeah,
kind of a mild kind of alpha, kind of in a low beta state that's sort of like you're relaxed, yet you're still
sure.
focused, calm, and attentive.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I'm going to set this to 13 hertz.
And I think here is by intervals of 10. So if you got like I could probably set it to like a P. Let me see. Yeah, could you do it either 10 or 20 hertz? I mean, it goes all the way up to 90.
Yeah, let's actually I'll put mine at 10. Yeah,
Okay.
you start yours at 10. So that'll actually train an alpha rhythm. Alpha is really important for relaxation. It's kind of an idling rhythm of the brain. That's also really critical for peak performance because alpha is, that's like where flow states are really like,
Yeah.
flow states are these bursts of a lot of alpha activity. So for people, like whenever you get immersed in like a good book, movie, whatever it is, your hobby, whatever you're passionate about, and you sort of lose track of time, you're super focused. That's like an alpha brainwave pattern.
I feel like I'm in an alpha brainwave right now.
Yeah.
So great.
Yeah. So we can actually induce that, induce more of those.
And if you guys can tell on camera, I have these two lights in my nostrils. This is the infrared, this is the red. It's set to the same frequency as the helmet. There we go.
Man, you look like a construction worker who's doing some biohacking.
Yeah, that's basically what I am nowadays. Yeah. Brain and body architect. All right, cool. And so how long do I have to have this on in order to derive the benefit?
That's a good question. So there's sort of a sweet spot somewhere between, I mean, as low as 4 or 5 minutes, and then with this helmet, maybe up to 12, 15 minutes would be the kind of the longest I'd usually run a session for.
Yeah, they're just set to 11 more minutes.
Yeah, different devices are different, but with this helmet, just with like how, it's a pretty powerful device that's getting a lot of different areas of the brain. It doesn't need to be, the sessions don't need to be for like an excessively long time.
Cool.
Well, basically what's occurring here is, and some of the viewers like might already be familiar probably with like the concept of mitochondria, the importance of mitochondrial health, mitochondria being the parts of the cell that generate our energy and really important for so many aspects of what we do. And the brain is like chock full of mitochondria.
So how many mitochondria? I think you gave me a
man, right? I may have given you, I don't even remember.
It was like 15 million per neuron or something like that.
It's something crazy. Yeah.
Something in just an astronomical number.
Yes. So when we think of like improving the mitochondrial health of the brain, I mean, that's more energy to focus, to sleep.
I feel amazing right now, bro. I feel not wired. I feel just like a very gentle rise in brain juice, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that blood flow there's
blood flow, it's
a
oxygen.
subjective experience because basically what's happening with the light, or the light's getting absorbed by the mitochondria. So both the mitochondria within the nasal cavity and also like the prefrontal cortex of the brain, what the intranasal light is hitting. And then with the helmet kind of hitting a lot of different areas of the brain, the mitochondria is absorbing that light and it's becoming like supercharged. So that drives up brain blood flow, increased oxygenation. It decreases a lot of different inflammatory cytokines, and also increases the rates of like neurogenesis, which we talked about. Yeah. Also something called synaptogenesis, which is like the birth and creation of new connections amongst those existing brain cells. Yeah, the synapses.
I recently invested in a platinum LED red infrared light panel, and I would meditate in front of it in the mornings, and I feel the same way I would feel the same way I feel right now. I mean, fortunately couldn't ship it over to Uruguay, but when I was using it up in New York, I mean, it just transformed my early morning meditation. I feel like I'm standing in front of a red light panel right now. Except It's not on my skin, and on the rest of my body, but um, yeah, but it's more cerebral. It's something's going on in here right now. Something is definitely happening up in there.
But you're absolutely right that like probably most people are familiar, but if they are familiar with light therapy at all, it's probably from, this whole body panels.
Yeah.
Juve is a company that I actually bought a Juve light several years ago. It's actually, you made me really look forward to getting it back. I just shipped it off to get it repaired.
Oh yeah.
Like in my closet for a while.
Yeah.
But those whole body panels are great for just like reducing like, muscle fatigue.
Yeah.
People are using it a lot, like athletic performance is a huge application.
Yeah.
So just like the whole body has mitochondria and the light is really energizing the mitochondria throughout the body,
Yeah.
the mitochondria in the brain, they can have the same benefit.
Yeah.
There's sort of different wavelengths of light that are better for the body versus the brain. So the manufacturers of the devices kind of take that into account when they're devising these different systems.
Wow. Yeah. And so is this sort of priming me for the training that we're about to do?
Exactly. So this is how I always like start a session.
Yeah.
The whole course of the session. So always start with like the light helmet. The reason being, I interviewed Dr. Marvin Berman, who is actually the doctor that manufactures this helmet here. He runs this Quiet Mind Foundation that actually like researches the effects of light on different neurodegenerative conditions, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. I think they're doing trials for different mental health disorders as well. And he basically told me on the podcast that using the light prior to any additional, what's called neuromodulation, which we'll talk about, but basically any additional training after the light therapy will actually work a lot better because we're basically energizing the brain on a very cellular level.
Wow.
So the brain, all this electrical activity that we're just talking about, it takes a lot of energy to produce all of that.
Yeah.
So when we're increasing the brain's energy, the brain then, when we're trying to get the brain to modify its brainwave patterns, it's actually better able to do so because it has more of that like raw cellular energy. So
right.
It's like, kind of like the workout, like thinking about a workout where it's like, you do the warm up.
Yeah.
And your muscles are all limber and, you're going to get a better performance with the actual workout.
Yeah.
The warm up. So you can think of the light as like the warm up.
Right. And then we had a previous conversation about this, how, a warm-up is more than simply just warming up, bringing warmth and elasticity to the muscle that you intend to train, helping you increase range of motion, avoid injury as well. But a warm-up also does a lot of the priming in terms of it literally sends the neuromuscular, it builds a neuromuscular response that allows you to better engage the muscle fiber when you actually train. So it's like, not only are you bringing warmth, oxygen, blood, elasticity to the muscle, but you're literally sending a message to that muscle saying, I want to activate you, I want to use you. And by the time you engage in the rest of the compound movements, you have better engagement. And that's actually one of the major components of strength is the neuromuscular component of strength. A lot of people think, oh yeah, the more muscle that I gain, the better. Well, because of the background that I have in exercise physiology and I actually had a neuromuscular lab that taught me to appreciate this, I have learned that there are certain things that I can do with my warm-up that help me push more weight than someone that has significantly more muscle mass than me. There's a few things that I do that I tweak, and it's helped me develop my strength like crazy. Two of those things are, yes, proper warm-ups with dynamic stretching, so movement-based stretches. I don't do any passive stretching because that sends a message to the muscle via the Golgi tendon organs that actually leads to too much relaxation, so it compromises muscle fiber contraction when you work out, therefore compromising your strength. So I do movement-based stretches. So for anyone that wants to, partake, just look up dynamic stretching and then do it for your respective, the respective muscle you want to train. But in addition, in the first few sets that I'll do, my warm-up sets, and as I'm transitioning to the compound movements, I'll do isometric holds. So that means that I will pause during the positive portion of a contraction. So if I'm doing, let's say, a pull-up, I'll pause either halfway through at the very top, and that actually leads to greater engagement of the muscle fiber. And so as the calcium is released and muscle fiber contracts, I'm getting that benefit, but I'm also getting the benefit that my brain is making that connection with my back muscles and going, all right, engage, engage, engage. By the time I add in more weight, my body's just firing. The neuromuscular connection is firing to the point where I can push a lot more volume. So, yeah, this is exactly what we're doing now, right? Is we're sending this, we're priming the brain in this way, sending all kinds of nutrients, getting everything ready to go. And last time we did this, because the truth is, folks, we had to redo this podcast due to audio issues, and it's the reason why, I'm reflecting back on this conversation that we've already had. It's that, dude, I was exhausted after our last training session, as if it were a physical training session. It drained me. We had the brain so primed. We did a very fun session that trained my brain, but it took so much out of me that by the time we were done and you were driving home, I felt this wave of exhaustion, as if I had literally just trained, as if I had literally just done like an hour and a half long like weightlifting, session. It was unbelievable. I got to the point where I even became anxious. I almost felt overtrained. It was a very intense training session. And for those who don't know, the brain consumes an immense amount of glucose, to power itself. The brain is thirsty. And when I mentioned this on several podcasts, but when I do podcasts and I have to maintain an intelligent conversation for hours on end, by the time I'm done, I feel, number one, exhausted. Number two, starving for glucose. So something that has helped, and I think we mentioned this on part one, was taking ketones and putting yourself in a ketogenic state, because it's more like an endurance state for the brain and the body. And so in that case, your cravings for glucose aren't really there. You can maintain, nice stable energy for a longer period of time. So when I do take ketones, I didn't take them before this podcast. I don't have access to them right now. But when I take ketones before my podcast, I can maintain that pace for hours and hours. I can do 3 podcasts back to back and feel nothing.
Yeah. So you might notice that exact same effect if you were to take ketones before neurofeedback, actually.
I bet. Yeah. It's exactly, yeah.
The more things you can do, like the light therapy, like ketones, just a diet that's very anti-inflammatory, sunlight, good sleep, all of these things are going to help the brain be able to respond to training better. You're going to have more brain energy.
Yeah. And I don't know if for those tuning in, if you notice a difference in my performance or my conversation or anything that I'm doing, now you'll know why. I feel like I just feel activated. You know what I mean? I feel great.
Cool.
Yeah. What's next?
Cool. So what's next? I'm just prepping an alcohol wipe. We're going to kind of wipe off a couple different parts along your scalp, where I'm going to be putting electrodes. So it's not going to be that full electrode cap that we had on you the other day to do the brain map. On this, we're basically going to be doing neurofeedback, which is where we just have some individual electrodes.
Cold.
Yes. I warned you. But basically with neurofeedback, so this is basically like a video game for your brain. Like you can basically think of it like that. We're basically going to be having the brain, or having you hooked up to the electrodes, and you're going to be watching some kind of media. So you basically be watching anything that has audio and video to it. And that's how you will be getting feedback. So for instance, when your brain is creating like the desired electrical rhythms that we're going to train, your brain is going to get the reward, which is going to be a clear screen and the louder audio tone.
Right. So you're training my focus, essentially. That's the primary.
Yeah. We're in train like a low beta state, which is very involved in focus, but also promoting relaxation. So it's like low beta is almost kind of the bridge between beta and alpha. Mm-hmm. It's kind of this. So the alpha is more so involved in relaxation, beta being more so your focus.
Well, so it's a relaxed focus, and I would say, I don't know if this is exactly. I don't know if I'm understanding it the way you're describing it, if I'm getting it at 100%, but typically when I have to force myself to focus, it's unsettling, because I'm like, why should I have to make such an effort to focus? So I guess this is a way to get the focus with calmness, because it's what my body needs to do what I want to do.
Right.
To function optimally.
Right. Your brain should be making like more efficient use of it.
Right. It shouldn't be frustrated. It shouldn't be a frustrating thing to focus.
Exactly.
So, all right. So, and then as far as the training goes, I'm going to watch a show that I enjoy. I think last time we had a fishing show.
Yes.
And the screen gets clearer, the audio gets better when I pay more attention. And then there's a mechanism built into this program where it gets more and more challenging to pay attention and to focus. Right?
Exactly.
How exactly does that work?
So it calibrates how well you're doing, basically measures if you're hitting the reward threshold. So for instance, if we're increasing beta waves, which were low beta, if your brain is consistently hitting, say, above 75% of the time, it's hitting that reward threshold, then it's too easy for you. So the computer will pick that up and it will basically raise the threshold. So you'll actually have to be producing higher amplitudes. The beta waves, the low beta will actually have to be even stronger in order for you to maintain that reward. Wow, it's like it works out perfectly. Like think about it like, taking it back to like the gym, when you think of like when you first start training and I don't know, you're bench pressing, I don't know what you bench, but say someone's just starting out, they got whatever 45 pound, on each side. It's like,
That's my warm up, bro.
saying like they're doing that for a couple weeks. And then that 45 pound, on that weight on each side, that's no longer enough to like elicit a strong enough stimulus to get the muscles to respond like in a positive way. So that's why the computer basically calibrates the challenge level where it's always going to be pushing your brain. We don't want it to be so easy that you're always getting the reward. We don't want it so difficult that it's like frustrating where you're just like always seeing the screen as dark.
I was trying to bridge this or bring this back to the fitness analogy that we were discussing. And what came to mind is I had a chance to visit Biohack Labs in St. Pete. My friend Zach, Biohack Zach, Zachary Lowenthal, he runs that lab, and they have these machines. I forget what they're called, but it's an isokinetic machine, meaning the force that you generate. Like if you're on, let's say their leg press machine, as you generate more and more force, this plate meets that force, and so it allows you to completely max out, right? Because it gets the machine gets the feedback, and it helps meet that feedback with as much force as possible. So as you go harder and harder, it meets that, so you can really truly max out. And what ends up happening is you get an extremely difficult workout, except instead of being an hour and a half long, in order to do that much damage, to create that much of a stress on your nervous system, in order to, promote that adaptation and hormesis, that have that hormetic effect, you instead get the workout in 15 minutes, and it's the most intense work you've ever done in your life. So I actually had him take me through one of these. I maxed out. I did a bench press. I did lat pull downs. I did leg press. And let me tell you, man, that I was sore for like a week. I had completely overtrained, and I was anxious and couldn't sleep because I was so overtrained. And it reminds me of the effect that this session had on us. I think that because I'm just so engaged in the content creation, I kind of will dismiss how difficult, in fact, this is to do. The point being, when you have this kind of technology, you can really take things to their limit, and it may be beneficial, but it's also very easy to overdo.
Yes.
So,
and that's, I think, why it's so important to be like utilizing these different technologies, regardless if you're using a workout machine, some kind of high-tech workout machine like you're describing, or you're doing neurofeedback. It's like important that that you're working with someone who knows what they're doing and identify signs of overtraining, and to sort of modulate the training based on what's best, for what you can handle.
yeah.
For instance, with neurofeedback, sometimes people will they'll report like what you were saying, they'll get like absolutely exhausted after 15, 20 minutes of training.
Yeah.
We're not going to like force them to do a full 30-minute session in that case. That person's brain is getting enough of a workout, getting enough of a push in a shorter amount of time.
Something else to consider is when we were doing this last time, we had my dad. He joined us. He was sitting on the couch next to us as we were running this, and we had my dogs there. Listen, Mom was getting home, so the dog started barking. It was like so much harder to find that focus.
Yeah.
That, as a result, I had to. It was a really intense challenge.
Yeah.
So boom, exhaustion and overtraining hit like a truck.
Yes. All right. So
I think it's called ARX, by the way. I want to give a shout out to the guys. It's great.
Yeah, it's intense. Right?
Yeah, I actually did when I went to the biohacking conference. I have videos that I haven't posted. I need to post those videos. But when I went to the biohacking conference 2 years back, I got one of the ARX workouts, and you'd think, oh, you're at a biohacking conference, you can go as hard as you want because then they have people on the other end who are all about recovery and such. Dude, I did the ARX. It was like a 10-minute workout, extremely intense, and I didn't sleep that night. The next morning at the conference, I looked for every fucking nootropic and recovery company that I could, and I like doubled down on all their stuff, and it helped, but it still, overtraining is certainly not something to fuck with. There's a reason why those workouts are only 10, 15 minutes. They are that intense. So keep that in mind if you go and do some of the ARX isokinetic stuff to max out on your lifts. Proceed with caution. Yeah, we're at my brother's apartment right now. Shout out to my brother, Andres Preschel, aka Cliff Whitaker. He's got an incredible music studio here that we're using to our advantage for this show. So, shout out.
Okay, so what we're looking at, these two screens right here are basically showing the electrical activity at the couple electrodes on your head. So we have one F3 and F4, so working both frontal lobes. And you can see these electrical rhythms. So what we're looking at, this is a good signal. So that means we're good to get started with training. Okay, so now I'm going to turn on, so you're going to get the screen fading. So the audio or the screen is going to fluctuate in its brightness based on how you're doing. The reward, as we were talking about before, is going to be a brighter screen. And then when your brain deviates from that healthy electrical activity, you'll lose the reward, and the screen will get dark. And then same deal with the audio. The louder it is, the more your brain is producing, in our case, those low beta brain waves. And the less it's producing those, the quieter the audio will get.
All right, go ahead and show folks what's going on. This is crazy. Mind if I put this?
Yes, absolutely.
Dude, look, it's perfectly clear at this point. Look at that. I'm really paying attention.
Got you in that low beta state.
Yeah. I know that we're doing the hotspot, so the quality, is it going to be there? I assume that's what it is.
Yeah, probably so. Really just the dimness of the screen is really how you're getting the training.
Right.
But, probably why it is a little blurry. So the neurofeedback machine is actually picking up the electrical signal and then sending it back the feedback within 100 milliseconds.
Yeah.
And that's actually quicker than conscious processing. So a lot of this is like a subconscious, your brain kind of like figuring out what it needs to do to make the screen clearer.
Wow.
So it's perfect that the screen is kind of oscillating between kind of being more bright, it gets dark, because that means it's challenging the brain. If you were constantly getting a clear screen, it's too easy.
It was in the beginning. I'll tell you, if you want to show the camera. Let me tell you something. This is not easy. I am genuinely making an effort to focus right now. Like, it's really difficult to focus. It's difficult to get the screen to light up when I want it to light up. I have to actually focus. Not an easy thing to do, especially with the brainwave patterns that you saw.
Yeah. What's good though is the more training sessions you do, the more your brain, it's like learning to fire these different electrical rhythms. What the brain's learning with the neurofeedback, it's a skill, just like anything else, where it's like the more repetitions you get, the better you get at producing or at doing that. So with the brain, the more it does this neurofeedback training, the better it gets at starting to produce these different rhythms.
Yeah. It's funny because the more that I listen to exactly what you're saying, how you're saying it, the dimmer this gets. It shows me that I'm not quite as good at multitasking as I thought I was.
Multitasking is pretty darn difficult. I say women are better at it.
Really? Have you seen that in your brain scans?
I don't know. I don't know enough about the neuroscience of multitasking.
Hey, this is the fishing. This is the waffle part.
That's what happens. See if we get all clear screen there.
See what happens. Bro, I'm literally like fucking with it on purpose. You know what I mean?
You have to load it with your brain. It's not gonna display it unless you do well enough. That's the real reward.
Actually, makes sense. Makes sense. I think it is. It? Oh yeah, it is. It is. All right. So this is getting harder and harder. Genuinely, it really is.
And that's exactly what it's doing in terms of pushing the challenge threshold up. So the more you're able to get that screen clear.
See the fish. The second the fish got, look at that. Yeah. Bro, so look at that. That's crazy, man. It's not one of mine either, which is the reason why it's getting him. I love the walk. Gray snapper. They're gonna go with. I mean, I catch gray snapper all the time. I'm not so amused by it, as you can tell. But the wahoo is certainly something that it's a dream. It's a dream for me to catch a wahoo. So it's crazy because every time there's like some kind of climax, my brain just lights up. You know what I mean? And I feel like they structure these shows to have just the right amount at just the right times, and then they prepare the music and the cutscenes in order to really help to promote that climax and make you go, man, what a show. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, yeah. Because they could just show, the fishing itself, but because there's a story, there's a build-up, so the point where finally get a fish on, you're like going crazy, and you can see that. Look, it's the second he brings something in, boom, look, lights up.
We reward Andres' brain by showing him fit.
Yeah,
that's the reward.
Yeah. I don't like triggerfish.
Yeah. You want to move on to the audio visual?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the audio visual entrainment device. This is a company called Mind Alive. They're based in Canada. They basically, with this device, we can basically entrain the brain by using the visual signals, which you're going to get from these glasses here. So these glasses, I'll show the camera kind of what goes on. That up, you see the flashing there. So
yep.
This is basically flashing. So in the same way with the light helmet, it was entraining the brain by flashing, a frequency of light, or the brain kind of creates that same rhythm. So that's kind of what we're doing in a sense here too with the glasses. And then, so you'll be wearing the glasses, and then there's also going to be headphones where you're going to be listening to like isochronic tones that entrain the brain. So it's similar to binaural beats, where it entrains the brain to create that same frequency. And then the third thing is going to be cranial electric stimulation. So there's actually a couple of ear clips, one on each ear, that's delivering like a very mild electrical current. This is nothing like ECT, like people have heard of, like whenever there's like electric stimulation, people think, oh my gosh, like electroconvulsive.
What's ECT?
Like electroconvulsive therapy they did in the 60s or something.
Right.
I shouldn't even said that to create that association in people's mind. That's just what everyone's like always like worried about when I say electric stimulation. But basically it's by mildly stimulating the brain on an electric level, you increase blood flow, oxygenation, also ramp up the production of different neurochemicals like dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin. So which produces kind of a cool effect. And then we're also going to be, the frequency that we're using for this is going to be an alpha frequency. So
Cool.
kind of going back to like the frequency that we're using with the, with the light therapy. Okay. So I'm going to put a little bit of the skin prep gel on your ears.
Should I just sit back and relax or what?
Yeah, let me turn the intensity up.
Oh, wow.
Now you're starting to see the flashing.
Yep.
Flashing lights, cool. All right, I'm going to turn the volume up a little bit here too.
Oh, wow, this is very nice, man.
All right, now last thing I'm going to start up is that electrical stimulation on your ears. So you're going to start feeling like a mild kind of tingling sensation. Let me know kind of when you start feeling it.
Kind of feel it now.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel it.
So this is sort of a trifold, a three-pronged approach in training the brain using the glasses, the headphones, along with the ear clips.
And what should I be focused on?
Really just letting your mind go. With audiovisual entrainment, it kind of usually takes people to sort of a dissociative, meditative sort of state, like a very deeply relaxed meditative state, without actually having to like consciously sort of get yourself there. So it's kind of like a little bit of a cheat for people who might be struggling with meditation. They can't quiet their mind enough, or they just don't want to put in, use all that sort of willpower that it takes to maybe meditate. This can sort of entrain those same electrical rhythms of meditation, but it kind of walks you by the hand and gently guides the brain.
Well, it shows you what's possible, right?
Exactly.
It brings it back to that conversation. Yeah, I think this is really showing me what's possible, and I'm sure that this is a state that I can return to naturally. So, assuming I practice my meditation, and
Yep.
yeah, this feels. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be able to meditate to the point where my ears are vibrating, but this feels amazing.
Yeah. And that's, I think, an important point.
This is insane.
With like all this, everything that we're doing, we're, sort of, increasing or decreasing levels of different frequencies that the brain's already producing on its own. We're not giving any external, like a drug or sort of anything that the brain recognizes as foreign. We're basically telling the brain or helping the brain entrain itself with these different technologies or with the neurofeedback, giving it feedback on when we want it to be producing more or less of a certain brainwave.
Dude, this is amazing.
Yeah, I actually really like this technology for like, when I get home from work, I'll take kind of like a little power nap.
I can't even begin to imagine
it. Dude, it's an awesome feeling, like waking up from, sometimes I doze off even longer than the session runs. The session runs like 30 minutes, but usually I'll just like wake up feeling so refreshed. Like I got a full night's sleep right there.
Funny because I feel like I can see patterns, and my brain and I guess my eyes are picking up on these different patterns in the lights and how they're oscillating. And as soon as I start to notice them, they start to disappear, and then I see another pattern, but just kind of going from pattern to pattern. It's very relaxing, soothing.
Yeah. That's definitely what you should be feeling with this technology.
And the sound itself is it's really nice.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do less talking, more meditating, as you can tell.
It's all good.
It's almost like it knows what I'm doing. I don't know. I feel like I'm getting some kind of feedback, or could just be making it up.
Yeah, should just be pulsing the light and maybe at different angles where you have the glasses.
Yeah, I
pointing,
think that's what it is.
Yeah,
What type of response do you typically get from people that have never done this?
usually very, very deeply relaxed state. This can calm people who are in like states of, like on the verge of like a panic attack, or just people are just feeling very stressed out. This really just calms the nervous system, activates the parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest response. So it takes people out of that kind of chronic fight or flight. So many of us are stuck in where we're just producing high levels of cortisol and adrenaline, all these stress hormones that are actually really detrimental, like long term when they're being chronically released, pretty detrimental for the brain. So this really activates the parasympathetic response and boosts serotonin, norepinephrine, dopamine. Also, it actually, interestingly enough, you'll find this interesting, it raises endorphin levels. So people dealing with chronic pain can sometimes find this helpful. So can have a big impact on that as well.
I feel like I'm being abducted by aliens and being put into their meditation chamber.
It's exactly what's happening.
All right, my heart rate just went back up.
I'm going to turn the electrical stimulation up a little bit. Did you notice it kind of felt like it dropped down in intensity a little bit?
Yeah.
Like when I first put it on? Yeah. So it's kind of like your nervous system sort of habituates to that stimuli, so then I can kind of gradually increase it a little bit.
And I almost hear something in the back, and that sounds like a heartbeat.
That thump?
Yeah.
Yeah. With the audio.
I know that human beings have this mechanism by which our heart rate can match the audio that we're tuning into, to the point where if you play very relaxing music, it'll help you relax.
Mm-hmm.
And second, that you make it more intense, your heart rate will quite literally match that rhythm. I mean, it makes sense, right? If you play more intense music, you're gonna get amped up.
Right.
There's like a very direct relationship.
Yeah, I have wondered that sort of heartbeat, that thump, whether that, is partly involved in just kind of the relaxation response that this induces.
I mean, the heartbeat that I can hear, and it honestly even feel. I mean, so there's this thump, and it seems to me like it would be below 45 BPMs. It's a pretty slow heartbeat that I can feel and hear, and I think it's helping my own heartbeat to that low.
I've had that exact same thought. Yep.
Because it sounds like my heartbeat. I have my rest of heartbeat, when I'm in a relaxed state, it'll go all the way down to, low 40s.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds to me like this is consistent with that.
I mean, we know how much like the heart and brain communicate with each other, so it's like could almost be that the brain picking up that auditory signal, that heartbeat, and sort of sending that down and actually inducing the heart to kind of be slower. I mean, I'm not sure,
but it feels like a hug. It's like I'm hugging my mom.
Yeah,
feels like I'm in the womb. You know what I mean?
It's a very pleasant, meditative, dissociative sort of state that you get in.
Something changed. It sounds different.
All right,
I'm buzzing, bro.
I love it. I love how you've really felt like a significant like change in your state with like all the different technologies that we've tried today.
Yeah. Dude, I don't even want to take this off.
Yeah, right?
Wow.
So you can see how like someone like struggling to meditate, who's like finds that really challenging, you throw that on and it's like takes you there. And see, you look, I want to be where you're at. You're in a very like blissed out looking state right now.
Oh man. Wow, I feel like I just woke up from the best nap ever. Feel amazing. Wow. That was really sweet, bro. That was nice.
Awesome. That's how I like to kind of conclude the sessions with that.
Makes sense.
It leaves
Yeah.
people with a nice, good feeling.
Yeah. Well,
What do you think? We kind of covered the full scope of brain training right there.
yeah, and last time we did this, we didn't get the chance to do the this relaxing session at the end. It makes a big difference because what we did before that was pretty intense. So it's a nice way to wind down,
Yes.
relax, and yeah, just so nice, man. You do this for work, bro?
I was using all this on myself, and I was like, man,
Cheat codes, bro.
so much. It's going to improve other people.
Wow.
In all sorts of populations, from working in clinical, like drug and alcohol rehabilitation centers, to clinical mental health places, to peak performance and wellness. That's with Neuroflex, it's really what we're targeting is like bringing these technologies that have usually been in like the research lab, clinics, and bringing them to the biohackers, the people, who are wanting to enhance. Maybe they already have pretty good brain function, but they're wanting to enhance it. It's like, I may have mentioned this in the last episode. I'm not sure if I did, but like, when you think about going to the gym, it's like you don't just go to the gym when you're out of shape, but that's how people view, brain training at this point in time. And at the end of 2022, when we're recording this, it's like the most people kind of, if there's nothing wrong with the brain, they don't really do anything. And I want to help shift that paradigm where it's like, we can make a good brain great. That's the goal with this training.
Turning good to great.
Exactly.
And I'm like totally zen down. So it's just, at this point, all I want to do, man, is just take a nap or, just get lunch. We're going to get lunch.
Can't wait.
My brain and my body needs it at this point.
Yeah. We just probably burned through quite a bit of your glucose storage.
Yeah. Time for, well, we're in South Beach recording this. I returned to Uruguay.
He said South Beach, so
he got. Yeah, that's perfect. We're heading over to Avo Miami here in Sunset Harbor. It's a restaurant that I collaborated with to create a superfood protein shakes menu. So I'm about to have the Avo shake, which has it's got a bunch of goodies in it. It's got the energy bits, chlorella, and spirulina. It's got avocado, chlorophyll, some Truvani plant-based protein powder, the absolute cleanest and just the best top shelf protein powder blend. What else is in there? We've got some shredded young Thai coconut meat. We've got, what else is in there? There's a bunch of, it's good stuff. But there's another one. There's a chocolate one that we make. I just drank a little protein shake with the Kion protein. I call it the chocolate whey warrior because it's got whey protein. It's got colostrum, which is actually something that warriors, from way back used to eat colostrum for their performance, their physical performance needs, and has tremendous benefits with that. So now it's like it's like a warrior food. It's great stuff. So colostrum, there's cacao nibs in there. What else is in there? Oh, there's there's another one with a mushroom blend. That one doesn't have mushroom blend. I don't know. We'll show people. We'll add it to the video. We'll show you guys the menu. At this point, I'm forgetting, but there's each shake has a bunch of superfoods, and I think that it's definitely an appropriate little meal after something like this.
Yeah, I think we're gonna just eat everything in the menu.
Yeah, honestly,
with our hunger levels,
we just lamb chops and some protein shakes. Let's do it, man. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Toby, for everything you do, man. Thank you for being an incredible scientist and guest on the show. I'm glad that we finally made this happen and got everything figured out with audio, video, and thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you all.